Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with the third of these brand new Mattel Jurassic World Chaos Theory Epic Evolution Wild Roar figures, and this time we have the Pachyrhinosaurus. And yes, it is nice to see a Pachyrhinosaurus in the Mattel line with the actual species name on the box, because previously, the last time we got a Pachyrhinosaurus, it was actually labeled as a Sinoceratops, which was an obvious mistake on Mattel's part, but we now have a Pachyrhinosaurus that is actually labeled as a Pachyrhinosaurus, and it looks way better, I think, than our older version. But you can see the box art is pretty much the same thing that we had previously, nothing new going on, and in fact the same thing can be seen for the back of the box. Again, a nice full-bodied image of our Pachyrhinosaurus, and then an image down here showing off some of the other figures in this wave, all of which we have now reviewed except for the Parasaurolophus. So let's pop this box open and check it out. And here is our Pachyrhinosaurus now in all of its glory, and yeah, definitely a really nice looking version, like far and away I would say the best version of a Pachyrhinosaurus that we have had so far. I love this new sculpt. Mattel has been doing a great job, I think, on a lot of their newer sculpts for quite some time, but definitely, again, a massive improvement, in my opinion, over the older Pachyrhinosaurus from Mattel. Ooh, look at that. We even have side-to-side articulation in the neck of this one, which is pretty cool. Not the greatest paint apps in the world. Again, they're fairly bare for the most part, but I think they look okay. Nothing, flashy, but decent enough. And I think that's pretty much been the same case for all of these Wild Roars so far. They've had decent paint apps, but nothing that's super memorable. It's the sculpts, I think, that are more memorable than anything this time around. But let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look, and we'll check out this brand new Pachyrhinosaurus. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of our Pachyrhinosaurus, you can see it does have some very nice skin texture, definitely very impressive. You can see when you get nice and close, you can see how beautiful the skin texture truly is. You can see the nostrils right there. We have a brown coloration for a large amount of the body. You can see it's actually a slightly darker shade of brown, ever so slightly, I think, compared to the body, what we have here in the face. But you can also see an area of a light tan lead up from the underside of the throat into the lower jaw, and then we have a darker brown that kind of runs around the outside of the frill of our Ceratopsian and leads in, and I like how you can see it kind of trailing off, speckling off in a few areas. That looks really cool. We do also have that speckling that you often see on Mattel figures on this one, kind of showing up here through the course of the brown tones of the figure. We have a dark brown for the beak, and it also has a little bit of a satin shine to it, which is nice, and you can see the cracks and crevices within the beak look really good. And then when you lead up for that trademark bump of the Pachyrhinosaurus up here on the snout, you can see that as well has a different shade of brown. So we do have a decent bit of coloration here in the face of the dinosaur. One thing I can say, though, is if you look at my eye, the placement of the eye is pretty terrible. So, definitely something that I'll have to look into. If I find another one of these in store that maybe has better eyes, I might grab it and then repaint this one at some point, because I think the sculpt is definitely nice enough to repaint. You can see the eye over here looks a little bit better, but just as the other one is, it's not perfectly placed, which isn't something we see too often from Mattel nowadays. But inside the mouth, you can see there is a tongue sculpted out in there. It's just not painted, unfortunately. It also has that same dark tone that we have for the beak. But again, you can see some of the spikes leading around the head are painted. Most of them, I would say, and they also sport some nice detailing to them. Unfortunately, this one got the shaft, though, and I don't know why. I really feel like if you're going to paint all of the others, all you really had to do is paint those. Again, that one and this one over here. So 2 more, and you would have been good to go. But as you lead back here, you can see some decent looking skin texture and skin wrinkles leading back into the neck. You can see there is, again, a nice articulated joint in the neck, and currently the dinosaur has its head in an upward position, and that's, of course, because of the action feature. It now fell back down. So when I lean it back, the head kind of goes up. When you lean it forward, the head kind of pops back down. We can pull the head forward a little bit to get a nice look at the back of the frill, and you can see the skin texture looks nice back here. Nice, very vibrant scale detail. Leading up through the neck, you basically just see the brown, but once you lead up here into the spinal column and the shoulder area, basically, you start to see this dark brown pick up and just kind of splotch in a few different areas, spot around here and pattern through, and it very much so disappears as quickly as it shows up. Again, it basically shows up in the shoulders, but then is gone before we even reach the hip. It's actually gone in the mid-back area. But as you lead down here into the side of the dinosaur, again, the scale detail is absolutely phenomenal on this. And overall, I would almost say it's probably one of the thinnest ceratopsians we've had from Mattel. A lot of the ceratopsians that they release are fairly bulky, especially in the stomach region. This one kind of has a little bit more of a thin sort of look to it. As you lead down into the legs also look really nice. Again, you can see quite a bit of variation to the skin texture, like bumpier scales as you start out here in the leg. And again, almost like elephant-like skin texture as you lead further down through the leg. As you lead into the toes, you can see the toes look nice, all sculpted quite beautifully. The nails are sculpted nicely as well. Not much in the way of fine detail in the nails, but there is, again, a nice satin shine to the nails, which, again, I would prefer actual nail paint, but at least it kind of gives you the look of having paint, sort of. Same deal for the rear leg. You can see the knee right there, sculpted out nicely. The muscle definition as well is sculpted beautifully in both the front and rear legs here. Again, the skin texture is really nice with a very high quality paint job. I can't even imagine how much this figure would shine. And then as you lead back here, you have a nicely sculpted tail, and there's a little bit of a curve to the tail as well. We actually, since I'm here, I might as well just grab this for you guys and give you the Jurassic Facts app code right there in a nice light where you can add this one to your collection. But as you lead over to the other side, the only really big difference over here compared to the initial side is the positioning of the legs. You can see they are definitely positioned a little bit differently over here, and you can see a little bit more of the stomach region over on this side. You can see some nice skin wrinkles down here in the lower part of the stomach, and again, those really vibrant scales as you lead up. And again, as you lead out through the body, you can see that the tail curves away from us, but not too much in the way of difference. You can also see articulation-wise, we again have the ability to articulate the legs forward and back, very jerky. It can also come out away from the body quite nicely. And then for the rear legs, forward and back, just like with the Ceratosaurus, if you push the leg straight forward, the stomach kind of gets in the way for the leg. The legs do come out away from the body on this one, though, which is nice. They did not on my Ceratosaurus. And then, of course, you also have a swivel for the tail. But overall, this one is, without a doubt, in my opinion, the single best Pachyrhinosaurus we've had, and probably just generally one of the nicest ceratopsians we've had. I also really like that we can articulate the head like to the side. You can see you can completely swivel it around. So that definitely gives you some nice mobility in the neck and even a little bit more posability. As far as the action feature goes, again, it's that kind of like sort of button you push and you, or like a wheel almost that you push along. So let's go ahead and see what it does. So as you can see, we basically have like a ramming action feature for the dinosaur. And it basically headbutts things, and that's, of course, I guess what you would expect for a Pachyrhinosaurus. It works pretty nicely, and also, again, has some pretty fun noises to it. As far as a size goes, we're going to have to pull it forward a little bit. Lengthwise, you're looking at about 11¼ inches, or around 28½ centimeters. And then height-wise, I guess we'd have to put it up at the highest point, just around 5 inches or a little bit under 13 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A human being next to our Pachyrhinosaurus from Mattel. And you can see it is very nicely sized, pretty much your standard size for a ceratopsian like this. And here we have a comparison between the old version of the Pachyrhinosaurus and the new version. And I will say the old version was a really nice figure. It actually looks even better than I remember it now that I pulled it out. But honestly, I still think the newer one looks far superior compared to the older one. I think they've just, grown as far as sculpting dinosaurs goes. The older one was really good. The detail looks excellent on that figure. So much so that I've even repainted it in the past, which there are repaint videos for that dinosaur up on my channel. But I just feel like, again, they've just grown so much over the years that the newer one is just more of like a polished version of the Pachyrhinosaurus. They've had time to kind of figure this out a little bit more, and the newer one, like I said, in my opinion, just looks way better. But I also think, I kind of feel like this is two different species of Pachyrhinosaurus that we are looking at here, so that could also, contribute to the differences, but it still looks, again, super cool here next to the older one. Now, here is a comparison with the Sinoceratops, which is, in fact, the species that this dinosaur was originally mixed up with when it came to a Mattel release. But you can see they're pretty close to the same size. The Sinoceratops might have just a little bit of size on this Pachyrhinosaurus, but overall, they're very, very similar in size. Another fun figure, though, that I decided to bring in for a comparison is the super old school version of the Pachyrhinosaurus from the Jurassic toy line that was actually sculpted, I believe, by David Silva, so almost like an early version of a Beasts of the Mesozoic Ceratopsian. But you can very clearly see that if you happen to have this Pachyrhinosaurus, they are also quite similar in size. And normally, if it's a figure like this that we very much so know the size of, I wouldn't do so many comparisons with it, but because I know there were a lot of people really excited about this Pachyrhinosaurus, here's one final comparison with the Pentaceratops, so I figured I'd just give you guys a couple of extra comparisons this time around when it comes to the Pachyrhinosaurus, just to help give you an idea of how it would look with other ceratopsians in the line. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Epic Evolution Chaos Theory Wild Roar Pachyrhinosaurus is a really, really nice figure, and I would say my second favorite in the line as a whole. My favorite would be the Majungasaurus, but this one is a very close second. It is great as far as the sculpt goes. The paint apps, again, are kind of blah, kind of boring, nothing really impressive, but at the same time, they're pretty much what I would expect potentially for a ceratopsian. I don't expect them to have super crazy bright colors. Could be totally wrong, but this is basically coloration-wise what I would like to see on a ceratopsian, at least as far as the tones of color, but I would have definitely liked to have seen more patterning and stuff. At the very least, some more of that dark brown running all the way out onto the tail could have made a massive difference when it comes to the overall visual of this figure. The nails definitely could have been painted as well, but at least they have a gloss coat on them, which helps them look kind of like they're painted. But as a whole, I think the paint apps are pretty lazy, a little sloppy too, because, my eye placement isn't good on either side, but they, of course, could be worse, I guess. They're all right, just not great. But the sculpt is fantastic. When it comes to the fine detail, it looks incredibly impressive. And just as always, Mattel's sculpts become more and more vibrant as time goes on. Same case here for this Pachyrhinosaurus. The sculpt is exceptionally vibrant. The detail is super crisp and honestly just jumps off of the sculpt. And again, it is just generally updated in every way possible to make it look so much nicer than our original Sinoceratops, aka the Pachyrhinosaurus we had previously. The action feature is also pretty fun, and considering it is a ceratopsian, having that sort of like wheel type action feature, it allows you to kind of position the dinosaur's head in certain ways and leave it that way, which is nice as far as a display goes. But we also have some pretty smooth articulation through the course of the body, and I really quite like that as well, especially when it comes to the legs and the mobility of the legs. I think they work really nicely. So as a whole, this is definitely a figure worth picking up, and I highly, highly recommend that you do. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can do it on Big Bad Toy Store, because that's where I purchased mine. So make sure you check that link in the description. Go grab this gorgeous figure and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.